Chapter 1 Definitions. See Part 1 Cabinet. An enclosure that is designed for either surface mounting or flush mounting and is provided with a frame, mat, or trim in which a swinging door or doors or can be hung. Cable. Abandoned cable. Installed cable that is not terminated at equipment other than a termination fitting or a connector and is not identified for future use with a tag. 640.6b Abandoned audio distribution cables. The accessible portion of abandoned audio distribution cables shall be removed. 645.5g Abandoned supply circuits and interconnecting cables. The accessible portion of abandoned supply circuits and interconnecting cables shall be removed unless contained in a raceway. 722.25 Abandoned cables. The accessible portion of abandoned cables shall be removed. What cables are identified for future use with a tag? The tag shall be of sufficient durability to withstand the environment involved. 760.25 Abandoned cables. The accessible portion of abandoned fire alarm cables shall be removed. What cables are identified for future use with a tag? The tag shall be of sufficient durability to withstand the environment involved. 770.25 Abandoned cable. The accessible portion of abandoned optical fiber cables shall be removed. What cables are identified for future use with a tag? The tag shall be of sufficient durability to withstand the environment involved. 800.25 Abandoned cable. The accessible portion of abandoned cables shall be removed. What cables are identified for future use with a tag? The tag shall be of sufficient durability to withstand the environment involved. Cable. Armor type AC. Armor cable. A fabricated assembly of insulated conductors in a flexible interlocked metallic armor. Cable. Circuit integrity CI. Circuit integrity cable. Cable S marked with the suffix I used for remote control, signaling, power limited, fire alarm, optical fiber, or communication systems that supply critical circuits to ensure survivability for continued circuit operation for a specified time under 5 conditions. 728.4 General. Fire resistive cables and conductors and their components shall be tested and listed as a complete system, shall be designated for use in a specific system, and shall not be interchangeable between systems. Cable. Coaxial. Coaxial cable. A cylindrical assembly composed of a conductor centered inside a metallic tube or shield, separated by a dielectric material, and usually covered by an insulating jacket. Cable. Festoon. Festoon cable. Single and multiple conductor cable intended for use in installation where flexibility is required. Cable. Flat conductor type FCC. Flat conductor cable. 3 or more separate flat copper conductors placed horizontally edge to edge and enclosed within an insulating assembly. Cable. Instrumentation tray type ITC. Instrumentation tray cable. A factory assembly of 2 or more insulated conductors, with or without an equipment grounding conductor S, enclosed in a non-metallic sheath. Cable. Integrated gas spacer type IGS. Integrated gas spacer cable. A factory assembly of 1 or more conductors, each individually insulated and enclosed in a loose fit, non-metallic flexible conduit as an integrated gas spacer cable rated 0 volts through 600 volts. Cable. Limited use. Limited use cable. Cables that are intended to be used with protection such as a raceway or for specific restricted applications. Cable. Medium voltage type MV. Medium voltage cable. A single or multi-conductor solid dielectric insulated cable rated 2001 volts up to and including 35,000 volts, nominal. Cable. Metal clad type MC. Metal clad cable. A factory assembly of 1 or more insulated circuit conductors with or without optical fiber members enclosed in an armor of interlocking metal tape or a smooth or corrugated metallic sheath. Cable. Metallic conductor. Metallic conductor cable. A factory assembly of 2 or more conductors having an overall covering. Cable. Mineral insulated. Metal sheath type MI. Mineral insulated. Metal sheath cable. A factory assembly of 1 or more conductors insulated with a highly compressed refractory mineral insulation and enclosed in a liquid-tight and gas-tight continuous copper or alloy steel sheath. Cable. Non-metallic sheath. A factory assembly of 2 or more insulated conductors enclosed within an overall non-metallic jacket. Cable. Non-metallic sheath. Type NM insulated conductors enclosed within an overall non-metallic jacket. Cable. Non-metallic sheath. Type NMC insulated conductors enclosed within an overall corrosion-resistant, non-metallic jacket. Cable. Optical fiber. Optical fiber cable. A factory assembly or field assembly of 1 or more optical fibers having an overall covering. Cable. Optical fiber. Conductive. Conductive optical fiber cable. A factory assembly of 1 or more optical fibers having an overall covering and containing non-current carrying conductive member S such as metallic strength member S, metallic vapor barrier S, metallic armor, or metallic sheath. Cable, optical fiber, hybrid. Hybrid optical fiber cable. A cable containing optical fibers and current carrying electrical conductors. Cable, optical fiber, non-conductive. Non-conductive optical fiber cables. A factory assembly of one or more optical fibers having an overall covering and containing no eclectically conductive material. Cable, optical fiber, protected. Protected optical fiber cable. Optical fiber cable protected from releasing optical radiation into the atmosphere during normal operating conditions and foreseeable malfunction by additional armoring, conduit, cable tray, or raceway. Cable, portable power feeder. Portable power feeder cable. One or more flexible shielded insulated power conductors enclosed in a flexible covering rated from 2001 to 25,000 volts. Cable, power and control tray type TC. Power and control tray cable. A factory assembly of two or more insulated conductors, with or without associated bare or covered equipment grounding conductors, under a non-metallic jacket. Cable, power limited tray type PLTC. Power limited tray cable. A factory assembly of two or more insulated conductors rated at 300 volts, with or without associated bare or covered equipment grounding conductors, under a non-metallic jacket. Cable, service. Service cable. Service conductors made up in the form of a cable. Cable, service entrance. Service entrance cable. A single conductor or multi-conductor cable provided with an overall covering, primarily used for service. Cable, service entrance. Type C. Service entrance cable having a flame retardant, moisture resistant covering. Cable, service entrance. Type use. Service entrance cable, identified for underground use, having a moisture-resistant covering, but not required to have a flame-retardant covering. Cable, type P. A factory assembly of one or more insulated flexible tin copper conductor, with associated equipment grounding conductor S, with or without a braided metallic armor and with an overall non-metallic jacket. Cable, under carpet. Under carpet cable. Cables that are intended to be used under carpeting, for covering, modular ties, and planks. Cable, underground feeder and branch circuit type UF. Underground feeder and branch circuit. A factory assembly of one or more insulated conductors with an integral or an overall covering of non-metallic material suitable for direct burial in the earth. Cable assembly. Flat type FC. Flat cable assembly. An assembly of parallel conductors formed integrally with an insulating material web specifically designed for field installation in surface metal raceway. Cable bundle. A group of cable that are tied together or in contact with one another in a closely packed configuration for at least 1 meter 40 inches. Cable connector. A connector designed to join flat conductor cable type FCC without using a junction box. Cable connector is applied to hazardous classified locations. An electrical device that is part of a cable assembly and that, by insertion of two mating configurations, establishes a connection between the conductors of the cable assembly and the conductors of a fixed piece of equipment. Cable joint. A connection consisting of an insulation system and a connector where two or more medium voltage type MV cables are joined together. Cable management system. An apparatus designed to control and organize lengths of cable or cord. Cable routing assembly. A single channel or connected multiple channels, as well as associated fittings, forming a structural system that is used to support and route communications equipment, Class 2, Class 3, and type PLTC cables, and power limited fire alarm cables in plenum, riser, and general purpose applications. Cable sheath. A single or multiple layers of a protective covering that holds and protects the conductors or optical fibers, or both, contained inside. Cable system. Fire resistive. Fire resistive cable system. A cable and components used to ensure survivability of critical circuits for a specified time under 5 conditions. Cable system. Flat conductor. Flat conductor cable system. A complete wiring system for branch circuits that is designed for installation under carpet squares. Cable termination. A connection consisting of an insulation system and a connector and installed on a medium voltage type MV cable to connect from a cable to a device such as equipment. Cable tray system. A unit or assembly of units or section with insulated conductors having associated fittings forming a structural system used to securely fasten or support cables and raceways. Cable bus. An assembly of units or sections with insulated conductors having associated fittings forming a structural system used to securely fasten or support conductors and conductor terminations in a completely enclosed, ventilated, protective metal housing. This assembly is designed to carry fault current and to withstand the magnetic forces of such current. Cell is applied to batteries. The basic electrochemical unit, characterized by an anode and a cathode, used to receive, store, and deliver electrical energy. Cell, sealed, Sealed cell. A cell that has no provision for the routine addition of water or electrolyte or for external measurement of electrolyte-specific gravity and might contain pressure relief venting. Cell line. An assembly of electrically interconnected electrolytic cells supplied by a source of direct current power. Cell line attachments and auxiliary equipment. A term that includes, but is not limited to, auxiliary tanks, process piping, ductwork, structural supports, exposed cell line conductors, conduits and other raceways, pumps, positioning equipment, and cell cutout or bypass electrical devices. Auxiliary equipment includes tools, welding machines, crucibles, and other portable equipment used for operation and maintenance within the electrolytic cell line working zone. In the cell line working zone, auxiliary equipment includes the exposed conductive surfaces or ungrounded cranes and crane-mounted cell servicing equipment. Charge controller. Equipment that controls DC voltage or DC current, or both, and that is used to charge a battery or other energy storage device. Charge a power converter. The device used to convert energy from the power grid to a high-frequency output for wireless power transfer. Child care facility. A building or structure, or portion thereof, for educational, supervisory, or personal care services for more than 4 children 7 years old or less. Circuit breaker. A device designed to open and close a circuit by non-automatic means and to open the circuit automatically on a predetermined overcurrent without damage to itself when properly applied within its rating. Circuit breaker. Adjustable. Adjustable circuit breaker. A qualifying term indicating that the circuit breaker can be set to trip at various values of current, time, or both, within a predetermined range. Circuit breaker. Instantaneous trip. Instantaneous trip circuit breaker, a qualifying term indicating that no delay is purposely introduced in the tripping action of the circuit breaker. Circuit breaker. Inverse time. Inverse time circuit breaker, a qualifying term indicating that there is a delay purposely introduced in the tripping action of the circuit breaker. Circuit breaker. Non-adjustable. Non-adjustable circuit breaker, a qualifying term indicating that the circuit breaker does not have any adjustment to alter the value or the current at which it will trip or the time required for its operation. Class 1 circuit. The portion of the wiring system between the low side of the Class 1 power source and the connected equipment. Class 2 circuit. The portion of the wiring system between the low side of the Class 2 power source and the connected equipment. Due to its power limitations, a Class 2 circuit considers safety from a fire imitation standpoint and provides acceptable protection from electric shock. Class 3 circuit. The portion of the wiring system between the low side of the Class 3 power source and the connected equipment. Due to its power limitations, a Class 2 circuit considers safety from a fire imitation standpoint. Since higher levels of voltage and current than for Class 2 are permitted, additional safeguards are specified to provide protection from an electric shock hazard that could be encountered. Class 4 circuit. Fault-managed power circuit. The portion of the wiring system between the low side of the Class 4 transmitter and the Class 4 receiver or Class 4 utilization equipment, as appropriate. Due to the active monitoring and control of the voltage and current provided, a Class 4 circuit considers safety from a fire initiation standpoint and provide acceptable protection from electric shock. Class 4 devices. Any active device connected to the Class 4 circuit. Example include a Class 4 transmitter, a Class 4 receiver, or Class 4 utilization equipment. Class 4 power system. An actively monitored and controlled system consisting of one or more Class 4 transmitters and one or more Class 4 receivers connected by a cabling system. Class 4 receiver. A device that accepts Class 4 power and converts it for use by utilization equipment. Class 4 transmitter. A device that sources Class 4 power. Class 4 utilization equipment. Devices that are directly powered by a Class 4 transmitter without the need for a separate Class 4 receiver. The receiver is integrated into the equipment. Closed construction. Any building component, assembly, or system manufactured in such a manner that all concealed parts or processes of manufacture cannot be inspected after installation at the building site without disassembly, damage, or destruction. Closed closet. A non-habitable room or space intended primarily for storage of garments and apparel. Closed closet storage space. The area within a closed closet in which combustible materials can be kept. Collector rings. An assembly of slip rings for transferring electric energy from a stationary to a rotating member. Combiner DC. DC combiner, direct current combiner, an enclosure that includes devices used to connect 2 or more PV system DC circuits in parallel. Combustible dust. Solid particles that are 500 or more smaller that can form an explosible mixture when suspended in air at standard atmospheric pressure and temperature. Combustible gas detection system. A protection technique utilizing stationary gas detector in industrial establishments. Commissioning. The process, procedure, and testing used to set up and verify the initial performance, operational controls, safety systems, and sequence of operation of electrical devices and equipment prior to it being placed into active service. Communication circuits. Network-powered broadband. Network-powered broadband communication circuits. The circuit extending from the communication utilities or service providers serving terminal or tap up to and including the network interface unit NIU. Communication circuits. Premises. Premises communication circuits. The circuit that extends voice, audio, video, data, interactive services, telegraphic SIP radio, and outside wiring for fire alarm and burglar alarm from the service provider's network terminal to the customer's communications equipment. Communications equipment. The electronic equipment that performs the telecommunication operations for the transmission of audio, video, and data, and includes power equipment, for example, DC converters, inverters and batteries, technical support equipment, for example, computers and conductors dedicated solely to the operation of the equipment. Communication service provider. An organization, business, or individual that offers communication service to others. Community antenna television circuit CATV. The circuit that extends community antenna television system for audio, video, data, and interactive services from the service provider's network terminal to the appropriate customer equipment. Concealable nonmetallic extension. A listed assembly of 2, 3, or 4 insulated circuit conductors within a nonmetallic jacket, an extruded thermoplastic covering, or a sealed nonmetallic covering. The classification includes surface extensions intended for mounting directly on the surface of walls or ceiling and concealed with paint, texture, joint compounds, plaster, wallpaper, tile, wall paneling, or other similar materials. Concealed. Rendered inaccessible by the structure or finish of the building. Concealed knob and tube wiring. A wiring method using knobs, tubes, and flexible nonmetallic tubing for the protection and support of single insulated conductors. Conductor. Bare conductor. A conductor having no covering or electrical insulation whatsoever. Conductor. Copper-clad aluminum. Copper-clad aluminum conductor. Conductor drawn for C copper-clad aluminum rod, with the copper metallurgically bonded to an aluminum core. Conductor. Cover conductor. A conductor encased within material of composition and thickness that is not recognized by this code as electrical insulation. Conductor. Insulated conductor. A conductor encased within material of composition and thickness that is recognized by this code as electrical insulation. Conductor. Insulated conductor. Overhead service conductor encased in a polymeric material adequate for the applied nominal voltage and any conductor types described in 310.4 Conductor constructions and applications. Insulated conductors shall comply with Table 310.41. Table 310.42. Conductors. Outdoor overhead conductors. Single conductors, insulated, covered, or bare, installed outdoors on support structures in free air. Conduit. Flexible metal FMC. Flexible metal conduit. A raceway of circular cross-section made of helically formed, interlocked metal strip. Conduit. High-density polyethylene HEP. High-density polyethylene conduit. A non-metallic raceway of circular cross-section with associated couplings, connectors, and fittings for the installation of electrical conductors. Conduit. Intermediate metal IMC. Intermediate metal conduit. A steel threadable raceway of circular cross-section designed for the physical protection and routing of conductors and cables and for use as an equipment grounding conductor when installed with its integral or associated coupling and appropriate fittings. Conduit. Liquid-tight flexible metal LFMC. Liquid-tight flexible metal conduit. A raceway of circular cross-section having an outer liquid-tight, non-metallic, sunlight-resistant jacket over an inner flexible metal core with associated couplings, connectors, and fittings for the installation of electric conductors. Conduit. Liquid-tight flexible non-metallic LFNC. Liquid-tight flexible non-metallic conduit. A raceway of circular cross-section of various types as follows. 1. A smooth seamless inner core and cover bonded together and having one or more reinforcement layers between the core and covers, designated as LFNCA. 2. A smooth inner surface with integral reinforcement within the raceway wall, designated as LFNCB. 3. A corrugated internal and external surface without integral reinforcement within the raceway wall, designated as LFNCC. Conduit. Non-metallic underground with conductors nut. Non-metallic underground conduit with conductors. A factory assembly of conductors or cables inside a non-metallic, Smooth wall raceway with a circular cross-section. Conduit, reinforced thermosetting resin RTRC. Reinforced thermosetting resin conduit, a rigid non-metallic raceway of circular cross-section with integral or associated couplings, connectors, and fittings for the installation of electrical conductors and cables. Conduit, rigid metal RMC. Rigid metal conduit, a threadable raceway of circular cross-section designed for the physical protection and routing of conductors and cables and for use as an equipment grounding conductor when installed with its integral or associated coupling and appropriate fittings. Conduit, rigid polyvinyl chloride PVC. Rigid polyvinyl chloride conduit, a rigid non-metallic raceway of circular cross-section with integral or associated couplings, connectors, and fittings for the installation of electrical conductors and cables. Conduit body, a separate portion of a conduit or tubing system that provides access through a removable cover S to the interior of the system at a junction of two or more sections of the system or at a terminal point of the system. Boxes such as FS and FD or larger cast or sheet metal boxes are not classified as conduit bodies. Connector, an electromechanical fitting. Connector, intercell connector, an electrically conductive bar or cable used to connect adjacent cells. Connector, intertier connector, an electrical conductor used to connect two cells on different tiers of the same rack or different shelves of the same rack. Connector, load connector, an electromechanical connector used for power from the busbar to utilization equipment. Connector, pendant connector, an electromechanical or mechanical connector used to suspend low voltage luminaire or utilization equipment below the grid rail and to supply power to connect from the busbar to utilization equipment. Connector, power feed connector, an electromechanical connector used to connect the power supply to a power distribution cable, to connect directly to the busbar, or to connect from a power distribution cable to the busbar. Connector, pressure solderless. Pressure connector, a device that establishes a connection between two or more conductors or between one or more conductors and a terminal by means of mechanical pressure and without the use of solder. Connector, rail-to-rail connector, an electromechanical connector used to interconnect bus bars from one ceiling grid rail to another grid rail. Connector strip, a metal wireway containing pendant or flush receptacles. Container as applied to batteries, a single cell or multi-cell vessel or jar that holds the plates, electrolyte, and other elements of a single unit in a battery. Continuous load, a load where the maximum current is expected to continue for 3 hours or more. Control, the predetermined process of connecting, disconnecting, increasing, or reducing electric power. 750 CMP. 13. Control circuit, the circuit of a control apparatus or system that carries the electric signals directing the performance of the controller but does not carry the main power current. Control circuits, fault-tolerant external control circuits. Those control circuits either entering or leaving the fire pump controller enclosure, which if broken, disconnected, or shorted will not prevent the controller from starting the fire pump from all other internal or external means and may cause the controller to start the pump under these conditions. Control device, emergency lighting control device, a separate or integral device intended to perform one or more emergency lighting control functions. 700 CMP. 13. Control drawing, a drawing or other document provided by the manufacturer of the intrinsically safe or associated apparatus, or of the non-incendive field wiring apparatus or associated non-incendive field wiring apparatus, that details the allowed interconnections between the intrinsically safe and associated apparatus or between the non-incendive field wiring apparatus or associated non-incendive field wiring apparatus. Control room, an enclosed control space outside the hoistway, intended for full bodily entry, that contains the elevator motor controller. The room could also contain electrical and or mechanical equipment used directly in connection with the elevator or dumbwaiter, but not the electric driving machine or the hydraulic machine. Control space, a space inside or outside the hoistway intended to be accessed with or without full bodily entry that contains the elevator motor controller. This space could also contain electrical and or mechanical equipment used directly in connection with the elevator, dumbwaiter, escalator, moving wall, or platform lift, but not the electrical driving machine or the hydraulic machine. Control system, the overall system governing the starting, stopping, direction of motion, acceleration, speed, and retardation of the moving member. Controller, a device or group of devices that serves to govern, in some predetermined manner, the electric power delivered to the apparatus to which it is connected. Controller, motion controller, the electrical device S for that part of the control system that governs the acceleration, speed, retardation, and stopping of the moving member. Controller, motor controller. Any switch or device that is normally used to start and stop a motor by making and breaking the motor circuit current. Controller, operation controller. The electrical device S for that part of the control system that initiates the starting, stopping, and direction of motion in response to a signal from an operating device. Converter, DC to DC converter. A device that can provide an output DC voltage and current at a higher or lower value than the input DC voltage and current. Converter circuit, DC to DC converter circuit. The DC circuit conductors connected to the output of a DC to DC converter. Converting device. That part of the heating equipment that converts input mechanical or electrical energy to the voltage, current, and frequency used for the heating applicator. A converting device consists of equipment using line frequency, all static multipliers, oscillator-type units using vacuum tubes, inverters using solid-state devices, or motor generator equipment. Cooking unit, counter-mounted cooking unit. A cooking appliance designed for mounting in or on a counter and consisting of one or more heating elements, internal wiring, and built-in or mountable controls. Coordination, selective coordination. Localization of an overcurrent condition to restrict outages to the circuit or equipment affected. Accomplished by the selection and installation of overcurrent protective devices and their ratings or settings for the full range of available overcurrents, from overload to the available fault current, and for the full range of overcurrent protective device opening times associated with those overcurrents. Cord, flexible cord. Two or more flexible insulated conductors enclosed in a flexible covering. Cord connector. A contact device terminated to a flexible cord that accepts an attachment plug or other insertion device. CMP. 6. Cord connector is applied to hazardous classified locations. A fitting intended to terminate a cord to a box or similar device and reduce the strain at points of termination and might include an explosion-proof, a dust ignition-proof, or a flame-proof seal. Cord set. A length of flexible cord having an attachment plug at one end and a cord connector at the other end. CMP. 6. Corrosive environment. Areas or enclosures without adequate ventilation, where electrical equipment is located and pool sanitation chemicals are stored, handled, or dispensed. Countertop. A fixed or stationary surface typically intended for food preparation and serving, personal lavation, or laundering, or a similar surface that presents a routine risk of spillage of larger quantities of liquids upon outlets mounted directly on or in the surface. Crane. A mechanical device used for lifting or moving boats. Critical branch. A system of feeders and branch circuits supplying power for task illumination, fixed equipment, select receptacles, and select power circuits serving areas and functions related to patient care that are automatically connected to alternate power sources by one or more transfer switches during interruption of the normal power source. Critical operations areas. Designated DCOA. Designated critical operations areas. Areas within a facility or site designated as requiring critical operations power. Critical operations data system. An information technology equipment system that requires continuous operation for reasons of public safety, emergency management, national security, or business continuity. Critical operations power systems COPS. Power systems for facilities or parts of facilities that require continuous operation for the reasons of public safety, emergency management, national security, or business continuity. Cutout box. An enclosure designed for surface mounting that has swinging doors or covers secured directly to and telescoping with the walls of the enclosure.